You paid cash for a car to avoid a monthly bill. So, why do you feel more financially trapped than you did before? Why does your bank account suddenly feel fragile even though you technically own your vehicle outright? By the end of this audit, you will understand why liquidity, not ownership, is your only real defense against a volatile economy. This is for the disciplined saver who followed all the responsible advice, only to realize their debt-free status left them dangerously exposed. First, we will dismantle the myth of the cash buyer's ego. Second, we will audit the hidden car payment trap that quietly turns a vehicle into a financial cage. Third, I will show you how to maintain a real survival margin when income becomes unstable. Most people obsess over the interest rate they avoided, but completely ignore the opportunity cost of the cash they destroyed. Being debt-free on paper can still leave you financially weak in practice. You were taught that debt is always the enemy. You were told that if you cannot pay cash, you cannot afford it. On the surface, that sounds responsible. It sounds disciplined. It sounds safe. People congratulate you for avoiding payments. Friends call you smart. Family members praise you for owning the car outright. But an auditor looks deeper than emotions. An auditor asks only one question. What happens if life goes wrong? Because math does not care about pride. The moment you hand over $30,000 for a depreciating piece of metal, that money stops protecting you. It is no longer emergency capital. It is no longer opportunity capital. It is no longer survival capital. It becomes a vehicle sitting in your driveway, losing value every single day. You avoided a monthly payment, but you may have also erased your financial flexibility. And flexibility matters far more than most people realize when life becomes unstable unexpectedly. Imagine someone spends nearly all of their savings buying a safe used SUV outright. At first, everything feels calm. No debt, no interest, no lender, no stress. Then reality arrives one expense at a time. Insurance renews higher than expected, property taxes increase, the dog needs surgery, overtime hours get cut, groceries rise again, the water heater fails. Suddenly, the credit card statement matters again because there is no cash cushion left to absorb the pressure. Now the car becomes emotionally heavy. Not because the car changed, but because liquidity disappeared. A paid-off car does not reduce uncertainty. It only removes one specific payment. Everything else in life can still hit you at full force. People focus so heavily on avoiding interest that they ignore survival margin completely. But survival margin determines whether a difficult month becomes a temporary inconvenience or a financial disaster capable of destabilizing your entire household. When you lock too much money into a car, you reduce your ability to absorb shocks. You lose optionality. And optionality is one of the most valuable financial assets a person can have. Because the person with cash has choices. The person without liquidity has pressure. Pressure changes behavior. Pressure creates panic decisions, desperate loans, bad job choices, credit card debt, and emotional exhaustion. Ironically, avoiding debt can create the instability people were trying to escape in the first place. There is another layer to this problem most people never audit honestly: the emotional identity tied to owning things outright. For many people, paying cash is not just financial. It feels morally superior. People proudly say they would never finance a car or owe anybody anything. But notice what happened. The conversation became emotional instead of strategic. Financing itself is not automatically dangerous. An auditor separates tools from behavior instead of treating all debt like evil. High-interest debt with no plan is dangerous. Endless auto loans are dangerous. Buying luxury vehicles you cannot support is dangerous. But using low-risk financing while protecting liquidity is completely different. Think about someone who empties their savings to avoid a $500 payment, then loses their job 3 months later. Suddenly, the absence of a payment no longer matters very much, because now the real problem is survival. Rent, food, utilities, insurance, and healthcare still exist. Let us run a simple audit using two hypothetical situations. Subject A has $35,000 in savings and buys a $30,000 car entirely in cash. Subject A now owns a depreciating vehicle with only $5,000 left in liquidity. Subject B also has $35,000, but finances the same vehicle responsibly while keeping the cash reserves intact. Then a crisis happens: a layoff, a health issue, a family emergency, an income interruption. Subject A now has only a small survival window left. Rent consumes part of it, groceries consume part of it, insurance consumes part of it, utilities and gas consume part of it. Then stress begins compounding the problem. Subject A starts making defensive decisions. Maintenance gets delayed, medical appointments get postponed, investments get panic sold. Bills get pushed onto credit cards because the liquidity disappeared. Financial stress destroys decision quality faster than most people understand. Meanwhile, Subject B still has access to $35,000 in liquidity. Yes, there is still a monthly payment, but there is also breathing room, time, flexibility. Negotiating power, psychological stability. Subject B can survive longer and make calmer decisions during instability. Subject B can search for a better job instead of accepting the first desperate option available. That is why liquidity is not just about money. Liquidity is about maintaining control when life becomes unpredictable. Most people calculate only one number when buying a car, the monthly payment. But that is incomplete math. A proper audit includes depreciation, insurance, registration, fuel, maintenance, repairs, opportunity cost, and emergency reserve impact. That last category matters more than people realize. Because when you spend cash aggressively, you are not just buying a car, you are also destroying flexibility. And flexibility has enormous value during recessions, layoffs, medical emergencies, and economic instability. Imagine two people experience the same recession. One has 6 months of reserves, the other has almost none because they bought assets outright. Who sleeps better? Who negotiates better? Who survives longer without panic borrowing? The answer has nothing to do with whether the car is paid off. It has everything to do with liquidity. Many debt-free people quietly become vulnerable because their financial system looks stable on the outside while remaining dangerously thin underneath. Framework Rule 1. Liquidity is safety. The trap is draining your savings account just to avoid moderate auto loan interest. It feels normal because people are emotionally conditioned to hate debt. But cash reserves matter more than ownership pride. Never destroy your emergency buffer just to eliminate a monthly payment. Calculate your 6-month survival number honestly. Add up housing, groceries, insurance, utilities, subscriptions, gas, medical costs, and minimum debt obligations. Emergencies rarely arrive one at a time. Framework Rule 2. The Asset Realization Rule. The trap is treating a car like wealth because you own it outright. Ownership feels powerful, but cars are not productive assets. A vehicle is a utility tool that melts in value over time. Focus on total cost of ownership instead of emotional ownership. Check your current trade-in value and compare it to what you originally paid. Most people avoid this exercise because confronting depreciation feels psychologically painful. Framework Rule 3. The Margin of Safety Rule. The trap is believing no payment automatically means low risk. People notice visible payments while ignoring irregular costs that destabilize households. Transmission failures, tires, deductibles, medical bills, rising rent, and emergency repairs still hit your system. Financing is a tool, not an identity. Open a separate maintenance and replacement account immediately. Automation beats motivation because vehicles continue costing money long after the loan disappears completely. Framework Rule 4. The Emotional Audit. The trap is letting emotional hatred of debt override practical decision-making. Society treats debt-free status like a badge of honor, but emotional pride can become expensive. Sometimes paying modest interest functions like stability insurance because preserving liquidity protects you during layoffs and emergencies. Before buying a vehicle, ask not only how fast you can pay it off, but also how vulnerable you become after paying cash outright. Framework Rule 5. Control beats pride. The trap is making transportation decisions based on identity instead of system design. Emotional relief from ownership is temporary, but financial pressure is not. Build systems around flexibility, not appearances. Audit every transportation cost, including payments, insurance, fuel, parking, maintenance, and registration. Then ask whether your financial system could comfortably survive if your income suddenly dropped tomorrow. Financial resilience matters more than social validation or appearances. Paying cash is not the flex. Keeping options is. Being debt-free means very little if you become cash poor in the process. A paid-off car cannot protect you from instability if your bank account is empty. Financial strength is not about eliminating every payment. It is about building enough margin so payments do not control your life. Controlled obligations combined with strong liquidity create time, options, better decisions, stability, and eventually freedom from panic-driven behavior. This week, audit your emergency buffer honestly. Calculate exactly how many months you could survive if your income dropped by 20% tomorrow. Audit your transportation costs against your annual income. Review whether your savings could absorb layoffs, repairs, or medical emergencies without panic. Build a liquidity first policy for your household and decide on a minimum cash threshold you will never cross, just to eliminate payments or impress other people socially. The goal is not to worship debt. The goal is not to worship cash either. The goal is control. Mature financial systems focus on balance. Enough liquidity to survive, enough discipline to avoid reckless debt, enough margin to absorb instability, enough flexibility to adapt. Economic volatility does not care about your pride. The person who survives financial stress is usually not the one with the cleanest looking balance sheet. It is the person with the strongest flexibility and liquidity reserves. Would you rather be completely debt-free with almost no cash left in the bank, or carry a manageable car payment while keeping $30,000 liquid and available? Tell me why in the comments.